What if the world's smallest successful nation is already testing ideas that bigger countries are too afraid to even discuss? Singapore is often described as a clean city, a global financial hub, or one of the safest places on Earth. But behind its shining skyline is something much bigger. This tiny island is quietly experimenting with ideas that many governments admire but hesitate to copy. Some believe these decisions are bold. Others think they are too risky. Yet time after time, Singapore proves that being different can sometimes be the greatest advantage of all. Instead of waiting for problems to become crises, Singapore often acts early. It plans decades ahead, makes difficult choices, and accepts that not every popular decision is the right one for the future. That approach has helped transform a small nation with almost no natural resources into one of the world's strongest economies. But it has also sparked debates about freedom, privacy, fairness, and the role of government. So what exactly is Singapore doing that makes the rest of the world watch so closely? And why are many countries still unwilling to follow the same path? In this video, we will explore 10 bold strategies that continue to shape Singapore's remarkable journey and reveal why they remain some of the most fascinating experiments in modern governance. Point 1. Planning decades instead of election cycles. Many governments focus on the next election. Singapore focuses on the next generation. This difference changes almost everything. While leaders in many countries often make short-term promises to win public support, Singapore has built a reputation for making decisions that may not be popular today but could bring benefits many years later. This long-term thinking can be seen in housing, transport, education, water security, and even climate planning. Before a challenge becomes urgent, Singapore usually begins preparing for it. Land is carefully reserved for future projects. Roads and rail networks are designed with future growth in mind. New industries are supported years before they become essential to the economy. This approach requires patience because the rewards are not immediate. Citizens may not always see the full benefit until many years have passed. Yet this willingness to think beyond the present has become one of Singapore's greatest strengths. Many countries admire this model, but copying it is not easy. Political pressure often pushes leaders toward quick victories instead of long-term investments. Singapore has shown that consistent planning can build extraordinary results, even if those results take years to appear. And that is only the beginning. The next strategy may be even more surprising. Point 2. Turning almost everyone into a homeowner. Owning a home is becoming more difficult across much of the world. Rising prices and limited supply have made home ownership feel like an impossible dream for many families. Singapore chose a very different path. Instead of leaving housing almost entirely to the private market, the government invested heavily in building affordable homes through long-term national planning. Today, the vast majority of Singaporeans live in modern public housing that they own through long leases. These neighborhoods are carefully planned with schools, parks, clinics, transport, and shopping areas located close together. The goal was never just to provide shelter. It was to create stable communities where people could build their lives, raise families, and feel connected to the country's future. Home ownership also encourages people to take pride in their surroundings and invest in their communities. Of course, this system is not without debate. Rising resale prices, changing demographics, and affordability remain important topics inside Singapore. Even so, many experts around the world continue to study how such a small nation achieved such high levels of home ownership while maintaining well-planned urban development. For many countries, creating a similar system would require enormous political commitment and long-term investment. That is why Singapore's housing model remains admired, but rarely copied. Point 3. Treating water like national security. Imagine living in a country with almost no natural lakes and very little land to collect fresh water. For many nations, that would sound like a permanent weakness. Singapore saw it as a challenge that had to be solved before it became a crisis. For decades, Singapore invested in creating several different sources of water instead of depending on only one. Rainwater is carefully collected through an extensive network of reservoirs and canals. Used water is cleaned with advanced technology until it becomes safe for industrial use and, after further treatment, even suitable for drinking. Modern desalination plants turn seawater into fresh water, adding another layer of security. Every drop is treated as a valuable national resource rather than something to be wasted. This strategy demanded huge investments, years of research, and public trust. At first, some people questioned whether recycled water could ever be accepted. Instead of giving up, the government focused on education, transparency, and scientific testing. Over time, confidence grew, and recycled water became a respected part of Singapore's water supply. Many countries are now facing droughts, climate change, and growing populations. They know they may eventually need similar solutions. But building such systems requires billions in investment, strong public support, and long-term political commitment. That is why many governments continue to delay difficult decisions while Singapore has already spent decades preparing for a future where water could become one of the world's most valuable resources. From protecting water, Singapore moved to protecting something even more important: its people. Point 4. Investing in skills instead of waiting for jobs. Technology is changing faster than ever before. Entire industries are evolving, and some jobs disappear while new ones appear almost overnight. Many countries struggle to keep workers prepared for these changes. Singapore decided that learning should never end after school. The country encourages people to continue improving their skills throughout their working lives. Whether someone is young and starting a career or older and changing professions, opportunities for training and education remain available. The idea is simple but powerful. Instead of waiting for unemployment to rise, help people adapt before they fall behind. Businesses, educational institutions, and the government work together to identify future industries and prepare workers for them. Courses focus on practical knowledge that can be applied in real workplaces, helping people remain competitive in a rapidly changing economy. Of course, lifelong learning is not always easy. It requires time, effort, and the willingness to step outside familiar routines. Not everyone embraces change immediately. But Singapore continues to encourage a culture where learning is seen as a lifelong journey rather than something that ends with graduation. Many governments talk about preparing for the future, but Singapore has built systems that actively encourage people to keep growing throughout their lives. In a world where artificial intelligence, automation, and new technologies are reshaping the global economy, this approach could become one of the country's greatest advantages. Point 5. Building a digital government that saves time. In many countries, dealing with government offices can feel slow, confusing, and frustrating. People often fill out the same forms again and again, stand in long lines, or wait weeks for simple approvals. Singapore decided that this old way of working could not keep up with the modern world. Over many years, the country invested heavily in digital public services. Today, many everyday tasks can be completed online in just a short time. People can access government services, pay taxes, renew licenses, apply for permits, manage healthcare information, and complete many official processes without visiting multiple offices. Different government agencies also work together more closely, reducing unnecessary paperwork and making services easier to use. This digital transformation is not simply about convenience. It is about creating a government that responds quickly, uses data wisely, and reduces wasted time for both citizens and businesses. During unexpected challenges, such as public emergencies, digital systems also allow authorities to communicate and respond much faster. However, building such a system requires trust, strong cybersecurity, and constant investment. Some countries worry about privacy concerns or struggle because different government departments use outdated technology that is difficult to connect. Singapore continues improving its systems while balancing efficiency with the responsibility to protect personal information. For many governments, creating a fully connected digital system feels overwhelming. Singapore chose to begin years ago, and today it is still pushing forward while others are only starting the journey. As impressive as technology is, Singapore believes that protecting the future also means protecting the environment. Point 6. Making green living part of everyday life. Many nations speak about protecting nature, but turning those promises into daily reality is much harder. Singapore has taken a different path by making environmental planning part of almost every stage of development. Despite having limited land, the country has worked to fill its cities with parks, gardens, trees, rooftop greenery, and nature reserves. New buildings often include green features that reduce energy use and improve the surrounding environment. Public transport is continuously expanded so that more people can travel efficiently without depending entirely on private cars. The goal is not simply to make the city beautiful. It is to create a healthier and more sustainable place to live for future generations. Singapore also invests in clean energy research, better waste management, and technologies that help reduce environmental impact. Every major project is planned with the understanding that land is precious and natural resources must be used carefully. These efforts are not always simple. Green projects can be expensive, and balancing economic growth with environmental protection requires difficult choices. Yet Singapore continues to show that a modern city does not have to choose between development and sustainability. Both can move forward together with careful planning. Many countries agree with these ideas, but political disagreements, funding challenges, and competing priorities often slow progress. Singapore has demonstrated that consistent action over many years can gradually transform an entire nation. And the next strategy may be the boldest of them all, because it focuses on something every country fears losing most: its economic future. To be continued with point 7 and point 8. Point 7. Welcoming the world's best talent while developing local skills. Every country wants a strong economy, but not every country agrees on how to build one. Singapore has chosen a path that is both ambitious and carefully balanced. It welcomes skilled professionals, researchers, entrepreneurs, and investors from around the world while continuing to invest heavily in the education and development of its own citizens. The idea is simple. When talented people from different countries work together, they bring fresh ideas, new technologies, and international connections. These can create jobs, attract global companies, and help local businesses grow faster. At the same time, Singapore places strong emphasis on preparing its own workforce so that citizens can compete in a rapidly changing world. Schools, universities, and training programs are constantly updated to meet the needs of future industries. This approach has helped transform Singapore into a global hub for finance, technology, healthcare, and advanced manufacturing. However, it also brings challenges. People naturally worry about competition for jobs, rising living costs, and maintaining national identity. These concerns are openly discussed, and policies continue to evolve as the country searches for the right balance. Many nations face the same questions but struggle to find solutions that satisfy everyone. Singapore continues to experiment, believing that attracting global talent and strengthening local talent should happen together rather than choosing one over the other. As Singapore looks outward to the world, it also looks inward to one of its greatest strengths: trust in clean and effective institutions. Point 8. Fighting corruption with strong rules and high standards. Corruption has slowed the progress of many countries. It can weaken public trust, discourage investment, and make ordinary people feel that success depends on connections instead of hard work. Singapore decided many years ago that this could not become part of its future. The country built a system with strict laws, independent investigations, and clear expectations for public officials. Government institutions are expected to operate with transparency and accountability, and cases of corruption are taken seriously regardless of who is involved. This has helped create an environment where businesses feel more confident investing and where many citizens believe public services are delivered fairly. But maintaining clean governance is not something that happens once and then lasts forever. It requires constant vigilance, regular oversight, and a culture that values honesty. Singapore understands that public trust can take decades to build but only a short time to lose. Not every nation finds it easy to adopt such strict standards. Political pressures, weak institutions, and historical challenges often make reform difficult. Even when leaders promise change, turning those promises into lasting action is far more complicated. Singapore's experience shows that fighting corruption is not only about passing laws. It is about creating institutions that people believe in and protecting those institutions year after year. That commitment has become one of the foundations of the country's global reputation. Point 9. Preparing for crises before they happen. One of Singapore's biggest strengths is that it rarely waits for a crisis before taking action. While many governments react after problems become impossible to ignore, Singapore often spends years preparing for challenges that may still seem far away. This mindset has shaped everything from healthcare and food security to cybersecurity, energy, and climate resilience. Instead of assuming that tomorrow will be the same as today, Singapore asks a different question. What if something unexpected happens? That simple question drives long-term planning across many sectors. Emergency response systems are regularly tested. Critical supplies are carefully managed. Essential infrastructure is designed with backup plans so that important services can continue even during difficult times. Preparing for events that may never happen can seem expensive, and some people question whether such investments are worth the cost. But Singapore believes that the price of being unprepared is often much greater. When unexpected events affect the world, countries that planned ahead are usually able to recover faster and protect their people more effectively. Many governments understand this idea, yet political and financial pressures often push emergency planning into the background. Singapore continues to show that resilience is not built during a crisis. It is built long before the crisis ever begins. And that brings us to the final lesson, one that connects every strategy we have explored throughout this video. Point 10. Choosing long-term success over short-term popularity. Perhaps the boldest thing Singapore does is something that cannot be measured with buildings or technology. It is the willingness to make difficult decisions today for the benefit of tomorrow. Many of the country's biggest achievements came from policies that required patience, discipline, and years of consistent effort before the results became visible. Whether it was investing in education, securing water supplies, building affordable housing, creating a digital government, or preparing for future industries, Singapore repeatedly chose long-term planning instead of quick victories. That approach is not always easy. It can attract criticism and spark debate because people naturally want immediate results. Yet history has shown that some of Singapore's most important successes began as decisions that required courage rather than popularity. This does not mean every policy is perfect or that every country should copy Singapore exactly. Every nation has its own history, culture, geography, and political system. But Singapore offers an important reminder. Small countries can think big. Limited resources do not have to limit ambition. And bold ideas, when supported by careful planning and consistent execution, can change the future of an entire nation. That may be the biggest reason the world continues watching Singapore so closely. It is not because Singapore has all the answers. It is because it keeps asking questions that many others are still afraid to ask. Singapore's story is not simply about becoming rich or building impressive skyscrapers. It is the story of a nation that refused to let its size define its future. Again and again, it chose preparation instead of panic, planning instead of guessing, and long-term vision instead of short-term comfort. Some of its policies remain controversial. Others are widely admired. But together they have made Singapore one of the most closely watched countries in the world. The real question is not whether every country should become another Singapore. The real question is this: which of these bold ideas could help other nations build a stronger future? As global challenges continue to grow, more governments may find themselves studying the very strategies they once thought were too difficult or too risky to try. Now we would love to hear from you. Which of these 10 strategies impressed you the most? Do you think more countries should follow Singapore's example, or should every nation create its own path? Share your thoughts in the comments below because your opinion could start an interesting conversation. If you enjoyed this video and want more fascinating stories about Singapore, global strategy, and the ideas shaping the future of our world, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next upload. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.